What if I told you there was one self-empowerment tool that could help you to gain understanding and find true closure to any situation? Well, that is what we're getting into in this week's Compassionate Chat. Welcome back. I'm Michelle from happyhealthyher.com, where I help you live your happiest, healthiest life in body, mind, and spirit. Last week, we talked about the very difficult topic of closure, specifically how it must come from ourselves. I offered up 8 tools that I have used in my life to find closure. But then, earlier this week, I stumbled upon a reel from Christina Lope's The Heart Alchemist. I've been following her for years, and she gives great advice and information. And she was talking on the same topic of closure. She shared a very painful experience where she had to find closure, and she stressed that leaning into the grief of the experience, letting yourself experience that, and crying to let the emotions go was a big part of the closure for her. And I realized I really should have mentioned that. I have talked about the power of our emotions and the energetic release we can get from expressing them previously in the Power of Anger video. I'm going to link to that below. But I failed to mention that last week in the discussion of closure. So I'm so grateful that the universe put Christina's message in my path. One thing that to add to that is my bestie often reminds me that the choices that we make, whether good or bad, still require that we grieve the choices we didn't make or the life we didn't end up following. And I think that is really, really important, and really one of the trickiest things about closure is that we are required to give ourselves closure in both good and bad situations, and when things end the way, in ways that we want them to end, and at times even when they end outside of our control. Either way, we have to give ourselves that closure by honoring our grief. So while emotional release is a powerful addition to the conversation on finding closure, it isn't specifically what I could feel is the most powerful tool. What I actually think is one of the most powerful tools in helping us find closure, especially in our relationships, is actually astrology, particularly your birth chart. So your birth chart, if you're not aware, is a reflection of the cosmos at the very moment of your birth. It is a snapshot of where all the planets, the asteroids, and the sun and the moon are at that very moment that you came into the world. And when you are being born, there was also a sign on the horizon that you are like born into your sign. That's called your ascendant or your rising sign. I actually see that sign as being a part of your spiritual evolution and a greater sense of how your spirit shows up in the world. At least that's how I see it with myself. So your birth chart really is a collection of all the energies that were in the universe at that moment, the exact flavor of energies. And as I have said so many times, everything is energy. So this is a very, very powerful understanding of what you possess in this lifetime. So what does this have to do with closure? When you understand the unique flavor of your energies that you are operating from, it becomes much more clear why certain relationships and situations simply won't work for you. So I'll use my own birth chart as an example. My overall energy is in the sign of Cancer. I am a Cancer rising. I just mentioned Cancer was the sign on the horizon when I was being born. So as a Cancer, I have a very sensitive nature to me. I tend to be very nurturing, hence desiring giving compassionate chats every week. And I tend to be a homebody. Cancer is is represented by the crab, and the crab has its house on its back. So this homebody nature that I possess is very normal. But I'm a Leo sun, And most of the time when we first learn astrology and we first understand astrology, all we know is the sun sign. The date that we're born, the month that we're born will tell us our sun sign very easily. And you don't need to know anything about your chart to know that. But a Leo has very different energy than a Cancer. So for many years, I was really kind of confused by my astrology. I would read horoscopes, or I would read sort of the overview of what a Leo shows up like, and it didn't quite make sense to me. I would say all the time that, okay, if I'm a Leo and I'm supposed to be like owning the room and walking in with pride like a lion, then why am I so shy and timid? Which is more like a crab. When I delved into my natal chart, I finally had those answers. And I could even actually see where my Leo shows up and helps me to do things like put videos out onto YouTube. Everything finally made sense. All of my little quirks are right there in the chart. Last chat on closure, we talked about that element of closure being the why behind something ending. When you understand your astrology, and the astrology of the people closest to you, you get an understanding of the why. All of those little idiosyncrasies in your chart are your personal why. So every one of the 12 zodiac signs has its own energy, or even you could call it like a flavor, so to speak. I like to look at the 12 signs as archetypes, because depending on how much energy you have in any particular sign is how you are going to show up in the world. Now, we all have some of the 12 signs of the energy in our placements. It's naturally there in our energy. But some signs are going to be more pronounced than others, depend on the planets that are in those signs, and especially if any of your primary placements, the sun, moon, or rising, or any of those signs. You can even view the different zodiac signs as personality traits. And even just knowing someone's sun signs will give you a lot of insight into how someone is wired. So I mentioned I left a job in the last conversation about closure, and I was still sort of seeking to find more closure. But when I started to delve more into astrology, I could actually look at that office environment and all of the different people. I knew when people's birthdays were, and I could see that there was just a lot of competing energies present in that work environment. And in particular, I've talked about there were two colleagues who were always sort of fighting with each other. And it was very, very uncomfortable being in that presence for me, who always wants everybody to get along. My sensitivity was on high alert around when these two people were together. And one was an earth and one was an air. And those two elements don't go so well together. And so the earth person was always like digging their heels in, so to speak, and being stubborn in the way they chose to do things. And the air person was always sort of changing things up and wanting to make, trying to try new things and really open to being very communicative. And they just did not gel together. So those interactions just put me on edge, and it was never going to be a comfortable work environment for me that I can now see. In addition, of course, I had placements that didn't mesh either. I have Mars in Virgo, which tends to be a bit critical and perfectionistic. It's probably my most difficult placement. Now I see that I can be a little bit softer. I can be a little bit more compassionate to myself and also to my colleagues. I can understand that they were operating in energies that were very different from my own. And they actually, interestingly, showed up very much as their sun signs. So it was very clear why they were behaving the way they were. They didn't have a choice. You know, that's kind of how it is when you have personality traits wired into you. It's just how you are. And closure means accepting how people are and deciding Can I live with that or can I not? Will that gel with my energy or will it not? So I've been studying health and wellness for over 30 years. And I can honestly say that delving into my natal chart really has been the tool that has helped me piece things together more than anything else I have uncovered. And so I really do feel like it is something that can be really helpful for your own personal understanding and closure when you're in environments or in situations where you cannot figure out why they will not work. It can offer you that insight. So if you're interested, I offer a life map coaching program that goes into your natal chart, a very, very detailed report, 27 pages generally, of all your placements and how they all work together. I then intuitively piece that information together because everyone has threads of information that are stronger and more pronounced, and that can help guide you to understand sort of your purpose for why you do things, or even why you are here on this earth, what you are meant to do. If that's of interest, please check out my website. I will link to that particular option below. But I totally understand if you do not have the resources. I really want you to still be able to get the tools that you need. So I have a page on my website called Astrology Resources. I will link to that as well. And it has tons of free resources and ways that you can access your own free birth chart and delve into this information on your own. Because like I said, it is such a powerful tool, and I think it would be really helpful if you are struggling to understand why certain relationships or situations just have never worked for you. It'll give you a clearer understanding and help you choose relationships and situations that feel more comfortable with your energies and that are much more aligned with your personal traits. So I hope this helped. As always, I wish you happiness and good health, and I thank you for being with me.